Hey everyone, before we cover how to beat the diamond weapon in Final Fantasy XIV, this video is actually sponsored by Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. It's a free-to-play mobile game, and my personal favorite one at that. A turn-based marriage of Final Fantasy X and the Dissidia franchise that features over 140 free characters, an epic story with no pesky stamina systems to get in the way, and constant additions to both single-player and multiplayer content. It's currently in the midst of its spring campaign with huge login bonuses and a special beginner weapon banner that new players can use to really get a massive head start. This lasts until the 28th of April, and if that wasn't enough, Y'shtola's burst weapon, her most powerful weapon, is available until May 7th. So if you enjoy my content and you're looking to try out what is my favorite mobile game, check out the download link in the description. Support the channel and support the sponsor at the same time. Trust me, you've got a heck of a time ahead of you with this one. Now, with that, let's get to the video. Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to my guide to the Cloud deck on the extreme difficulty. This encounter against the Diamond weapon rewards an item level 525 weapon, a mount, crafting materials, the usual trial stuff. It even gives you 2 totems upon completion instead of 1. Now thanks in advance to fellow members of the Radiance FC for contributing some extra footage and perspective for this guide. You can find info on them in the description alongside some timestamps to help get to specific mechanics in the video. Now before the fight begins, you'll want to split the raid into 2 groups. I prefer to do light parties with 1 tank, 1 healer, and 2 DPS. Most of the mechanics in this fight require a 4-4 split, so this is just the most common way to split the party. You also need a few more position assignments, but we'll cover those later in the video when they're more relevant. Oh, and of course, you can fall off. At the start of the fight, Diamond Weapon will immediately bring up the opposite platform and begin casting Diamond Rain. In Extreme, this attack deals damage relative to the number of people on each platform. Ideally, you want 4 people on each platform to make the damage manageable, though more is survivable with some mitigation. It's 1 magic vuln stack per person, and so the damage after 4 people really starts to ramp up. To split to the other side, one of your light parties should be assigned to hop over via the teleporters immediately. In Extreme though, using the teleporter does give you a moderate cooldown on using it again, about 20 seconds. This means you can't hop back and forth willy-nilly like in normal, so pay careful attention to when you need to swap. So send light party number 2 to the eastern platform and heal through the Diamond Rain. You'll then notice both tanks taking laser beams. This is the same as in normal mode, and these are Diamond Weapon's auto attacks. They will always shoot line AoEs at the 2 highest enemy players. Both tanks need to be number 1 and number 2 on aggro, and if one of them dies, try not to stand together to limit the raid damage on the party. Definitely make sure to provoke as soon as you get up as well, dead tanks. Light cooldowns on these autos can also be quite handy as well, something like a Sheltron, nothing really more. The next major mechanic is Adamant Purge. When Diamond Weapon prepares this, it will access one of 3 data simulations, Emerald, Ruby, or Sapphire. Ruby simply slashes one of the 2 platforms, so anyone on the unsafe side needs to hop over to the safe side. Emerald has the claw from the Ruby simulation, but also fires an AoE at every player, so simply put, spread out once you're on that safe side. Sapphire is a line AoE instead of a spread AoE, and that's going to deal damage split between every player hit. So with Sapphire, stack up once you're on the safe side. That's really all there is to Adamant Purge, but I do have a few notes that can help you out with this. There are 3 total Adamant Purges in Phase 1. The first Purge is always either Emerald or Sapphire. The second one is always Ruby, and the third is always whichever is still remaining unused. Just a good thing to take note of. Second, once an Adamant Purge fully resolves, the light party that did not need to swap away for Ruby Claw should swap immediately. There are a number of other mechanics that will attempt to enforce a 4-4 split, and the people who just teleported over will have a cooldown preventing them from leaving, so it's on you to go to the other side. Finally, use these windows where all 8 people are on the same platform to prepare things such as mitigation, shields, or even raid buffs should they properly align with the opportunity. Otherwise, a lot of your raid buffs are probably going to miss half the raid unless everyone's really close to the center and on opposite platforms. After Adamant Purge number 1 is Photon Burst. This targets each tank with a proximity tank buster. Have each of them hang on the north side of the arena and pop a big cooldown like Sentinel. This will do room-wide damage as well, so make sure anyone low is topped off. So long as the tanks are on opposite platforms and use a cooldown, this really shouldn't be a problem. After this is Adamant Purge number 2, which as we said earlier is just going to be a Ruby Claw on one side of the room. Make sure to swap sides as usual here, as there is a Diamond Rain right after Adamant Purge. So make sure that people are moving as soon as it is safe from the Ruby Claw. That'll go right into Adamant Purge number 3, and that will be whichever data simulation still remains, either Emerald or Sapphire. Once this resolves and your light parties are split again, there is another Photon Burst to mitigate. After a few more autos, this marks the end of Phase 1. For Phase 2, Diamond Weapon will transform into an Ifrit-esque figure here and perform a small intermission phase. This summons 4 fists on each platform of the arena, with each tethering to a random player. You need to get far away from these, but you actually can't use the teleporters as you're going to need these for another mechanic later on. So to help resolve this, on either the north or south side of each platform will be a blue AoE marker. This kills anyone directly in the AoE, so don't do that by accident, but it'll knock everyone not in the AoE up and away from its location. You'll want to aim this hit to send you away from your tethered fist. Now, if your tethered fist is on the opposite platform as you, you'll actually just want to be knocked directly north or south to stay on the same platform. However, if your tethered fist is on the same platform as you, you'll actually need to get knocked east or west onto the opposite platform with this knock up and knockback AoE. You can see that positioning here in the video. It's really simple, but you just need to be cognizant of it. And that's really all there is to it. Now, once that resolves, Diamond will destroy one of the 2 platforms. Any players on that doomed platform need to use the teleporter before the AoE resolves, and this is why we didn't use the teleporter for the previous mechanic. Now everyone will be sharing a single platform for the second phase. One tank should ensure to establish stable aggro and face Diamond away from the group. It does have a normal hitbox now, so positionals are once again in play. It'll start with 2 back-to-back room wides called Outrage, so mitigate these as usual, reprisal, shields, you know the drill. After the second Outrage is Auri Arts. Diamond Weapon will summon a ton of orbs and jump between them, doing massive damage to anyone in the dash's path and giving them vuln stacks. The final jump even has a lethal knockback attached to it. In normal mode, there were AoE markers for this, but in extreme, no such luck. You just need to understand that Diamond jumps in a zigzag pattern between the orbs and that there are safe spots between each of them. This first Auri Arts is super easy. Look at the corner Diamond Weapon is jumping to and get behind it before the cast finishes. Now you're going to want to actually stand in the little blue or red grate towards the edge of the arena, so when it disappears to do the dashes, it'll dash right past you. You can see it play out here, so you get a solid example of what our positioning is relative to what direction Diamond Weapon is actually facing. This is great. It lets melee and casters do the mechanic with minimal movement. Once that finishes the zigzag jumps, Diamond jumps to the center and looks either north or south. Whichever side it looks towards, it will jump to the orb on that side before dashing back across the arena and killing anyone with a knockback in its path. Just be aware of what half of the platform is safe from the dash and get there once you see where Diamond is facing. After this is another Outrage before Auri Doomstead. This is just a small AoE tank buster plus physical vuln, but it hits super hard, so definitely make sure to use heavy mitigation, plus make sure to tank swap. It is an AoE, so the off tank should avoid standing next to the main tank here, only swapping positions after the tank swap itself is complete. Just remember to do your provoke and shirk shenanigans mid-cast bar. After the tank swap is Auri Arts number 2. Diamond Weapon will jump to an orb either north or south and perform one of 2 attacks. Now if there is no orb opposite to where Diamond is facing, it will just jump to the opposite side of the platform and do a big AoE where it lands. If there is an orb opposite of Diamond Weapon, it will dash across in a line AoE before then jumping back and hitting the arena around where it started the mechanic. So if there's no orb, stand near Diamond. If there is a second orb, stay on the sides of the platform and get away from Diamond Weapon. Regardless of which attack is used, Diamond will immediately follow it up with a knockback from a small marker on the east or west side of the platform. You can see a little light to indicate the center point for this knockback, same as in normal mode. Just make sure to get knocked back diagonally towards a corner of the arena. If you get knocked back cardinally, you might run into some problems. Now, knockback resistance does also work on this attack, but you'll have to do it 2 times in this phase, so which place you use it is really up to you. After another Outrage is Auri Arts number 3, which starts with Articulated Bits. This will summon fists that fire lasers in a line from where they begin across the arena. The first fist will go north or south and basically cut off half of the arena vertically. This just means you need to dodge the next attack on the safe side of the arena. This just happens to be just before Diamond repeats the same pattern from Auri Arts number 1. Now there are 2 ways this mechanic goes. If Diamond Weapon jumps to a corner opposite of the safe side of the arena, you can use the same relative safe spot from the first time you did this Auri Arts, that uptime spot that was super handy for casters and melee. Now, oddly enough, on only 2 of our dozens of pulls, we saw it jump to a safe side corner. Now, that means you can't use that super safe uptime spot, but there are still a couple of spots that you can use. We actually went 3 of those red or blue grates away from the corner it was jumping to and just stood there. Not quite as friendly to uptime and whatnot, but it's not too bad either. Now make sure not to be too off center here, as it isn't as exact of a safe spot as the other one was. So being too far north or too far south will actually cause the boss to still hit you with one of the dashes. So once the bits go off the first time and Diamond jumps back to the center of the room, the fists will reposition and do line AoEs across the arena horizontally. Now you want to try and avoid both the horizontal fist AoEs and the vertical dash that comes from the Diamond weapon. That's really all there is to this, but honestly though, bit of advice, if it comes down to one or the other, the fists are not lethal if they hit you, so long as you have some HP. But the dash is, so make sure to prioritize dodging the dash knockback over the fists. After another outrage plus the tank buster and swap will be Auri Arts number 4. This is basically Auri Arts number 2, but it has those fists again. First, half the arena will be cut off vertically, just like the first time by those fists. Get to the safe side and watch for which jumping pattern Diamond Weapon is doing. Once the first fist and Diamond Weapon's jumps resolve, half of the room will actually be cut off horizontally while you do the knockback that was in Auri Arts number 2. You just want to make sure you get knocked back to the side without any bits. Easy peasy. After one more outrage, phase 2 will end and Diamond Weapon will return to its original form for the final phase. After a single auto attack is the mechanic I think the Party Finder will evolve the most over time, Flood Ray. Please note that I've already seen 3, maybe 4 different ways that people are doing this, and I am by no way advocating that this is the way to do it. Try to fundamentally understand how it works, and you can be pretty flexible with it in the Party Finder because it's not that complicated. Flood Ray will mark every player with a number between 1 and 8. After the cast bar finishes, it will fire a massive conal AoE at the players in their marked order. So 1, then 2, then 3, etc. up to 8. If you are hit by any AoE other than your own, you'll die due to the vulnerability debuff you get from each laser. We did this very simply. Odd groups got left, even groups got right. That means 1, 3, 5, 7 left, 2, 4, 6, 8 right. Now the players with 1 and 2 will go north on their respective platforms first, and 3 and 4 will go south. Once a number gets hit by their own laser, they retreat to the middle of the platform they're on, and the person who's 4 numbers above them will take their spot and wait for their AoE. So after 1 gets hit, 5 goes and takes their spot, and 1 goes to the center of their platform. 2 would be replaced by 6, 3 by 7, and 4 by 8. This is used in very many places in the rest of the game, and this is the easiest way I know how to describe it. But I've seen some Gigabrain stuff in the Party Finder, so I won't be surprised if someone finds some like completely static position. So just, this is how I'm telling you to do it now. Be prepared to adjust because the Party Finder comes up with some crazy stuff, I swear. Once that ends, everyone can actually rejoin their usual light parties and all get on the same sides you were on at the start of the fight. There's actually a ton of time here, and there's no risk of the teleporter timer messing with the mechanic unless you wait a really long time to go join your party. The tanks will get a Photon Burst, so them swapping and hanging on the north side of the room is actually very important. Next will be Adamant Purge plus Articulated Bits. The bits will cut off half of each side of the arena, while Diamond Weapon does either Emerald or Sapphire data simulations. This time though, Diamond will not announce which simulation they are accessing like they have prior. You can only determine this by looking at Diamond Weapon's model to determine which it's doing. If it has a giant laser cannon coming out of its chest, that's Sapphire Weapon. If it has like opened up shoulders, that's Emerald Weapon. Now before dodging the Ruby Claw, wait for the fist AoEs to go off the first time. Otherwise you're probably going to get hit by those in the process of swapping. And don't worry, there's plenty of time to do all of this. Then while doing either Emerald or Sapphire simulations, depending on which you get, you'll actually need to avoid more lasers from the bits, those horizontal lasers you had to dodge back in phase 2. The AoEs from these are pretty wide, don't forget, so just do your best to either spread or stack just outside of the bit AoEs. Nothing else to it. Now the party that didn't swap for the claw, just like back in the other phase, needs to swap over after this resolves to do Diamond Rain, like you were doing in phase 1. Please note that at this point, if your party is struggling, as long as you have 4 people on each side, the rest of the fight is salvageable. Which 4 isn't as important as just making sure that it is 4 and 4. The only problem ends up being the tank autos and the proximity busters. Those get semi-annoying, especially if both tanks are on the same side. Next is probably the second hardest mechanic in the fight, Diamond Shrapnel. After putting articulated bits down in a similar fashion to the previous Adamant Purge, Diamond Weapon will cast Diamond Shrapnel. This targets all 8 players with a large placed AoE that will chase them after a short delay. To do this mechanic, simply have the 4 players on the same platform all bait their AoEs on the side of their platform that has the bits. As soon as the AoEs appear, hop across the teleporter and run all the way to the edge of the arena. This should let all 8 people survive with relative ease. Once that resolves, 8 meteor markers will appear, 4 on each platform. Have 1 person stand in each of them. We actually assigned them from north to south, tank, healer, DPS 1, DPS 2. We did this at the start of the fight in our poll, but ended up just being YOLO because it was never a clean poll on day 1. Feel free to assign these really however you want. They're all in melee range anyway, and the only reason we put the tanks on the same side is because of a Photon Burst that's coming up. Couple things to keep in mind. For one, there will be horizontal fist AoEs coming out here, and they do overlap with the meteors. While there are tiny safe spots you can find, they go off well before the meteors resolve, so if you see a fist aiming in your meteor spot, just wait a second for it to go off first before you move into it. Also, the number of meteor markers does actually adjust to the number of people alive, so if there's only 6 people alive, only 6 meteors will appear. Now that doesn't guarantee the meteors will all be in spots that are equal to the number of people that are alive on each side, but you can save a run if you see an open spot that you can jump to across the teleporter. Honestly, if you're afraid of dying, I'd say tank LB3 if you still have it at this point. Right after this is another Photon Burst, like I just mentioned, so tanks handle that as per usual. It happens pretty much immediately after the meteors hit, so there really isn't much time, so get to it. Now after this, Diamond Weapon's just going to repeat a bunch of stuff. It's going to repeat Adamant Purge and actually use the opposite data as the previous Adamant Purge, which, again, either Emerald or Sapphire. Then it'll be Diamond Rain, then it'll be another Flood Ray. Now given this is just over 10 minutes into the fight, it's probably going to repeat Photon Bursts and then Bits plus Shrapnel again. But none of us saw that far in before defeating it, even with multiple deaths. And this is already over 10 minutes into the fight by the time you see Flood Ray number 2. Just expect a few more repeated mechanics at most and you'll be in the clear. And with that, congratulations on defeating the Diamond Weapon, the final Extreme Trial in Shadowbringers. Hopefully you've enjoyed this expansion's Extreme Trial guides. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. And of course, we'll be doing more of these in the next expansion. Come on. Of course. What do you expect? But with that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care.